We love a good magical sword. Arthur's Excalibur, Bilbo Baggins' Sting, Harry Potter's Sword of Gryffindor. Now, the mysterious sword in our next story doesn't seem to have magical powers, but maybe that's just because no one can read what's inscribed on it. 1825, Lincolnshire, England. An ancient weapon is discovered in the bottom of River Witham. The sword isn't just cool, it's cool AF. On one side is a mysterious inscription made by gold wire that has been inlaid into the steel with this strange group of letters. What do they mean? The British Library, where the sword resides, has been so puzzled by the inscription, it's requested help in cracking the seemingly incomprehensible code.
The sword itself is very impressive. It has a gold inlay, which is incredibly rare. But the Museum of London, with all the resources and the people that they've had to study it, still, nobody knows exactly what it says.
Journalist Eric Grunhauser takes a stab at some theories that have been offered, starting with the famous Knights Templar.
The Knights Templar, in their distinctive white mantles and red cross, were one of the most fearsome fighting forces of the Crusades.
Mysterious stories surrounding the Knights Templar continue to this day. Chief among them, the hotly contested claim that their mission was to protect the Holy Grail and the alleged bloodline of Jesus Christ. Many speculate that they communicated in their own secret code known as the Templar cipher.
Is this possibly code left over from the Knights Templar? Or maybe even an incantation meant to imbue the blade and its user with unearthly powers?
But another theory says this sword may go back much further.
According to the legends, there was a prince named Siegfried, or Sigurd, who lived near the Rhine River in Germany. And he needed to slay the dragon Fafnir, and Sigurd needed a mythic blade, and found it in the sword named Gram. With Gram, Sigurd slayed Fafnir and bathed in the dragon's blood, making himself invincible.
Siegfried and Sigurd are names for the same hero who shows up in both Germanic and Norse tales from old. The difference with Sigurd, however, is that he may have actually been real.
The legends of Sigurd may have been based on real historical figures, specifically kings from the Merovingian dynasty. Researchers have said that the sword was actually forged in Germany. So could this be the legendary Gram?
Germany, like much of North and Central Europe, was often a mishmash of ethnicities that invaded and intermingled with each other for centuries. The Norsemen were all over the place, and many stashes of weapons that they left behind have been discovered all over the UK, which could explain how such a sword ended up here.
Some think that the inscription was meant to enchant the blade and give power to both the blade itself and its user.
The Norse Vikings were big believers in this, frequently carving the runic letter for TR, the Norse god of war, onto their swords and shields for a supposed magical assist on the battleground. The Germanic people are thought to have originated from a small area of Scandinavia during the 4th century BC. So the Norse Vikings were technically Germanic and even share some mythologies. Let's see if our experts can determine if this sword is part of a myth, a legend, or none of the above. Archaeologist and anthropologist Kathy Strange shoots down the Norse mythology theory by pointing to one particular symbol that would never have appeared on Sigurd's sword, Gram.
There are symbols of crosses on the sword, and those symbols are definitely Christian. However, the Vikings practiced polytheism, meaning they worshiped many gods. Christianity worshiped one god. And so because of the Christian symbols that are on the sword, we can safely rule out that this is Gram, the well-known sword.
Archaeologist Ed Barnhart agrees with Strange's observation that this inscription is most certainly reflective of Christian faith.
It's a series of Latin characters that don't spell out a single word. Instead, they are the initials of a much longer statement. The first two letters are ND, which is probably Nostras Domini, which is our Lord. The next three are XO, X, that meant the Holy Trinity. So the first few letters do seem like the opening of a Christian prayer.
So could this sword be associated with the Knights Templar? Barnhart believes so.
The inscription is bracketed by two Christian crosses of very specific design. The very cross of the Knights Templar, which says that either it was a gift from the Knights Templar or it was used by Knights Templar themselves.
And as for those inscriptions giving the sword magic powers,
by the time we come into Christianity's dominance of Europe, they're now using that same thing, but it's the magical power of God inscribed on the sword in the language of the day, which was Latin. And the theory is that by throwing them into the river, they were returning them back to the magical powers of God and nature.
our verdict, based on the information our experts provided, we're going with Templar Knight Sword. But since it was personally crafted for its wielder, we may never know what the inscription was fully meant to say, or if it did indeed protect its owner with powers from God.